and I include that in there. So I don't just say the God of Raul, Bertha, and everybody. I each one repeat because each one had a relationship.
Wow. Have we got a comment?
Yeah. Each one had a relationship, and yet they were different. Because God talks about Abraham and be perfect. He didn't ask the other two that. And he said, Abraham's my friend. He did not call Isaac and Jacob his friends, as far as I know. Difference between a servant and a friend is in the book of John. It says, a servant, I will not tell him what I'm going to do. But a friend, I'm going to tell him what I'm going to do. This is why the three angels came to Abraham and told him that they were going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah beforehand. So God gave Abraham foreknowledge of what was going to happen because he considered him his friend.
Wow, Bob, that was actually very good. Thank you.
All right, very nice. So we have a lot of good comments in the idea that when you say God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob, you're emphasizing God in that sentence. When you say God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, you're emphasizing the people.
Read your commentary.
One of the things, too, it says, because I'm not the God of the dead, but God of the living. This was a resurrection question, but he is addressing the fact that I believe that he is addressing the fact that he wants to have that kind of a walk in relationship with each of us.
So,
That's also implied.
excellent. And also, I missed a big thing here. Okay, I missed a really big thing. So again, this is live. So I mean, this is exciting because I completely overlooked this. Remember, I just said there's this prayer called a vote, which goes back to Second Temple times. It goes, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob. That's part of a larger prayer called Shmoneh Esrei, or the Amidah. Shmoneh Esrei means 18, because traditionally there's 18 prayers, or the Amidah is standing, because we stand when we say prayers. We still stand when you do it on Saturday mornings. And the two prayers that we start off with is when we talk about, and again, this is going back to Second Temple times, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And then we do it, and Will also does it on Friday nights too, and we do it upstairs on Saturdays. It goes, Atagi bor lelama denai mechaye metim ata rav lehoshia. It says, you are the one who gives life to the dead. So he's quoting the two prayers that they would have been aware of.
That's
so it's the Avot and the Gevurot. So these are two prayers of the Amidah, the standing prayer that goes back to Second Temple times. That was kind of the core of the liturgical service. And so he's quoting those two prayers, and I just realized that right now. It's like, he says, I'm not the God of the dead, but the God of the living. And so this is something we say those two prayers right next to each other, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and then we say who gives life to the dead, Mechayim Mitim. And so
this is a digging deeper class. It really is good.
Wow. So he's quoting. So the rationale for Benny's question, the rationale of why he phrases it that way, is because he's specifically quoting a prayer that is done in that way, and so he's not choosing to say it that way. He's referencing something.
So those two prayers go right next to each other, and they're an important part of the liturgical service that goes back to the time of Yeshua. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's also a verse in Exodus 3:6. That's when Moses comes to the burning bush. It says, "Do not come any closer," God said. "Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground." And he said, "I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob." And at this, Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God.
Isn't that wonderful? Little insights like this, each one had their relationship. I know that my dad had a great relationship with God, my grandfather, but so do I. Each one of us are joined together, but we're separate in our relationship with God. And I think that's what it's emphasizing. What a wonderful insight. People don't even catch that.
I know we're already a little behind, but out of risk of getting us too far behind, I do have a follow-up question from the Sadducees here, because it's just something I'm personally curious about, and I would like to get your guys' insights on. Because Jesus here says, when they're asking about who are this lady going to be married to in the resurrection, he says, you do not know the scriptures. And so in terms of Jewish understanding, what is their understanding of the resurrection? Because there's a lot of people I know who get married and say, well, this is my soulmate. We're going to be together in heaven. The way this is sounding is like, well, no, we're not going to be together in heaven. We're just going to be souls. We're going to be angelic beings. We're not going to be married to each other. It's like, well, what does that mean? Are there any Jewish teachings about that? I know this is in terms of resurrection and stuff like that, so I don't know if there's much written about it. But in terms of Jewish tradition, do they, because he says it as if like, hey, you guys should know this. This is obvious. This is written right there. Like, oh, I never read it as a Christian.
Well, see, I think when we're in heaven, it says that we will know as we are known. I mean, we're going to step into a completely different level of how we know one another, and it's not going to be based on earthly relationships. It's not going to be. I'm not going to have a better relationship with my brother than I would with you, or with my wife than I would with anyone else. We're going to know everyone, and we're going to understand who they are, what their assignments, what they're called to do, and it's at a level of the spirit, not the level of natural living here on earth. So it's a completely different way of living and seeing and understanding. I'll know you, as a wife. I know my wife, but I'm going to know everyone at a level that we don't know here on earth. And so our relationship is not going to be tied to what our relationships on earth. There, we're going to be truly the body of Christ. We're going to be truly the New Jerusalem, and we're going to take on a whole new understanding of who we are, or what our assignments are, what we're here for, and the worship and all. We're not going to be tied to the things that were tied us here on earth. We're going to be. It's a completely different level of seeing, understanding, and existing.
But we will recognize Abraham.
Everybody.
And even like my uncle just recently passed away, and I was by his bedside where he was saying, I see your father, Raul. He's here in the room. He didn't say it once. He said it several times in our visit. Before he passed away, he would see my father. Other people, when my father passed away, he saw my late wife.
So you'll see them,
yes,
but it's not the same relationship tie that we had here. But you will know them, and they will be. You'll know who they were. You know who they were on earth. But you won't have to have that relationship as we had to have it here.
Well, this settles the argument about in the resurrection that a lot of people think in the rapture we're going to a wedding. No, this nullifies the wedding right there. The resurrection is something, it's a separation. It's not a gathering together. So the marriage will be on earth, just like Yahweh married the Hebrews at Mount Sinai. That was on earth. So this next marriage, the marriage supper of the Lamb, will be on earth. It's not going to be a heavenly wedding. So there's many other things that you can explain there, but this is the way you can understand prophecy a little better, that there are no exceptions to the rule.
All right, so we got, sorry.
No, I just were you asking if you could ask your question once again about the Jewish understanding?
Yeah, it was just the Jewish understanding of what life would be like after the resurrection, if there's any other teachings in any other Jewish lore. Because the way Jesus describes it to him, it sounds like he's saying, well, this should be obvious to you. It's written right there. But, I wasn't raised Jewish, so for me it wasn't obvious. And the way people describe going to heaven is I'm going to go hang out with my grandpa and my wife will be there and we'll be hanging out in heaven. It sounds like, hey, we're just going to live forever. He seems to be describing it differently. He seems to be describing it like, well, no, we don't exist like that anymore.
Right.
Which I think some people would say, well, that sounds sad. But obviously, it's not his intention.
Right. Yeah. So so I'm looking at this. I want to be honest. I don't want to make up an answer if I don't know it. I see a little bit of ambiguity in the text where it's hard for me to give you a clear answer because it says, it looks like to me, so this is not a fact. This is like, I mean, this is from my perspective, what I'm seeing, and so I need to qualify it with that, is saying that the Sadducees are saying they're basically testing him, right? So this happens throughout the Besorah, the Gospels, is the Pharisees and Sadducees. They mostly the Pharisees because Yeshua's theology is much closer to the Pharisaic. Like they had a lot more in common. But he goes over to them and he says, they ask about divorce. They're like, oh, we want to catch you on a, for instance, when they're talking about divorce, there's two schools of thought. There's the schools of Gamaliel and Hillel, and so they're trying to say, okay, which rabbi is right? They're both great rabbis. Which one's right? They're coming to him with these. They're trying to stump him, basically. So they a lot of times, and a lot of these times, they're not really wanting to know as much as they're trying to stump him. And so the thing is, Yeshua comes by, and he kind of like rises above the question, and in many of these cases, and in this case, for instance, the Sadducees aren't wanting to know the answer to whose wife will she be of the seven. They're not waiting for Yeshua to say, oh, the third one or the fourth one. They're trying to say, this is proof that there's no resurrection. I mean, that's a historical context of that. So they're trying to stump him. So they're not looking for an answer. The third, the fifth husband, the seventh. They're not looking for. They're looking for him to say, look, see, we got you. There's no resurrection. So Yeshua says, you're mistaken because you do not know the scriptures or the power of God. So he's talking about the power of God. Again, that one prayer that we talked about, the giver wrote, which you still say, means